Hello, I'm Congressman Jim Langevin from the great state of Rhode Island. I want to thank you for inviting me to share a few words at PVA's Advocacy and Legislation Training Seminar. While I'm sorry I can't be with you today in person, I'm certainly honored to be there in spirit as you tackle issues facing our veterans who bravely served this country. From the battlefronts of World War II to the jungles of Vietnam to the desert of Iraq, we owe our veterans an endless debt of gratitude. Now, I have the privilege of serving as a senior member of the House Armed Services Committee, and I co-chair the Bipartisan Disabilities Caucus in Congress. In these roles, I've explored various areas of disability policy, including accessibility, integrated employment, income and asset development, assistive technologies, education, health and long-term care giving, voting rights, and emergency preparedness. Now, I recognize these are just a few issues among many that have an impact on the veteran community. Ensuring access to quality health care services through TRICARE and the Veterans Administration are certainly among some of the more pressing topics that you face. Now, as we all know, over the years, TRICARE has undergone significant reforms, some of which are still being implemented today. The same issue is true over the Veterans Administration, where we're working to improve the health and social services our veterans receive. As these programs continue to serve beneficiaries, it's critical that we craft any legislative changes carefully and with input from people like you who have direct experience. So each day, it's important that we honor the distinguished members of our armed forces, past and present, who serve our country with unmatched dedication and valor. Ensuring access to care for those who make immeasurable sacrifice in defense of our nation is part of our enduring promise. At the same time, we must also provide for the well-being of military families and loved ones who care for our service members upon their return. Now, these family caregivers are silent heroes, ensuring family stability and helping those with chronic and disabling conditions avoid more costly out-of-home placements. Caregivers devote a substantial amount of their time and effort looking after their loved ones, often at personal sacrifice themselves. Caregivers, however, may often be unprepared for their new responsibilities, and the challenges they face can be daunting, from employment difficulties and financial challenges to depression and family stress. Respite care provides temporary relief for families caring for their aging or disabled loved ones with special needs. Now, if we had to put a dollar amount on it, our nation's family caregivers provide an estimated $470 billion in uncompensated care. That's more than the total Medicaid spending in all of 2013. Now, respite care decreases the need for professional long-term care, resulting in savings to the healthcare system and taxpayers. And ultimately, it's better for the veteran who's being cared for. I authored and helped champion passage of the Lifespan Respite Care Act in 2006, which remains the only federal program to address respite issues for families regardless of disability or of age or disability. 37 states and the District of Columbia have now received lifespan respite care funding. The bill I reintroduced with Bipartisan Disabilities Caucus co-chair Greg Harper, the Lifespan Respite Care Reauthorization Act, would allow states to continue offering these services and expand upon the progress established under these crucial respite programs. Although I'm fighting to reauthorize the law in a manner that provides more resources for family caregivers, it's not the only legislative avenue that I'm pursuing. I also reintroduced the Military and Veteran Caregiver Services Improvement Act, which makes veterans of all eras eligible for caregiver support services, not just the enhanced services provided to post-9/11 service members. This bill also extends eligibility to include a wider array of needs that may require caregiving, places greater emphasis on mental health injuries, and removes restrictions on who is eligible to become a caregiver. It also expands services available to military and veteran caregivers, such as child care, financial advice, and legal counseling. Advancing initiatives that matter to our service members and their families also means helping to make travel more accessible. That's why I recently reintroduced the Air Carrier Access Amendments Act. This legislation builds upon the accessibility framework established over 30 years ago by the Air Carrier Access Act, which was enacted to prohibit discrimination in air travel based on a disability. I believe that it's time to update the standard of air travel for people with disabilities who continue to face barriers when flying. This bill will promote inclusivity by making substantial improvements in ticketing, passenger assistance, and airplane accessibility and accommodation. Lastly, I'm working to highlight the importance of employing people with disabilities. Now, we know that there are labor shortages and gaps that must be filled across all industries, and there are not nearly enough skilled individuals available to supply the demand. So as certain occupations grow in need, people with disabilities can and should be viewed as an untapped pool of talent. As one pathway to address the employment gap of people with disabilities, I reintroduced the Transition to Independence Act, which encourages an expansion of competitive employment and integrated day programs. These initiatives help people with disabilities who are ready to work in the community and participate in community life. Now, I continue to look for ways to ensure that people with disabilities, including our wounded warriors, have the option to enter the workforce without losing access to the long-term services and supports that are truly a lifeline to maintaining a quality and more independent life. Now, to help you while you're in Washington, I've been asked to share what information assists me as a policymaker when meeting with different groups and organizations. And I've often found that there are three consistent points that are helpful to remember. First, when discussing your priorities with members and their staff, use real-world examples to help really better frame the issue. Personal accounts of how a particular topic affects your life or the lives of those that you care about will really resonate with lawmakers, and it personifies complex and otherwise abstract policy areas. Number two, make sure that you articulate any actions that you'd like the member to take, whether it's a bill to co-sponsor, a letter to sign on to, or a more general policy initiative to support. We're here to serve you, and having a clear understanding of your requests helps us to better achieve that goal. Third and finally, never hesitate to follow up with members and their staff after you've met with them to check on the progress of your requests. Maintaining communication with member offices very better allows us to continue the dialogue and makes us better advocates for all of you. With that, I want to thank all of you for being here today. I know that you've come together to advocate, educate, and communicate the potential impact of various legislative proposals on veterans and people living with disabilities. I look forward to working with all of you to continue the conversation on ways to enhance the opportunities, the services, and the programs available for our nation's disabled veterans. With that, I want to say thank you all for your service and enjoy the seminar.
Yeah, happy with that?
That works for me.
Okay.
Okay.
We're here.
Okay.
Should we get this mic up